Hey guys, Xinfonia here. If you didn't already know, we are getting a free permanent standard 5-star character. So hopefully I can help you understand which you should be getting, whether you be in the early game or the mid to late game. It's kind of organized by priority in general. Bronya and Himeko are the best and whatever, but there are some nuances if you are in the early game versus the late game or mid game. So let's start with the early game. In the early game, sometimes you may not have a sustain unit like a healer or a shielder, and that's when Gepard and Bailu's priority will go up, even though Himeko and Bronya are very strong units. It's kind of you take what you get, you don't really have a choice, you need a healer to help you get through stages, then you would do that. Obviously, if you are very patient, you want to remain as free to play as possible, or you want to have maximum value of the 5-star character that shut up the part. If you get the maximum get the maximum value of the 5-star selector that you are going to get, I would suck it up and just play Bronya and Himeko and then try to play it with I would just suck it up and use Preservation March for now, and if you get lucky, maybe even Gallagher, because Gallagher is insanely strong. He's one of the best support units in the game because you can use stuff like Quid Pro Quo on his ultimate because he has 100% action advance. He's used in many teams, he doesn't even need to be played in the Super Break team that is his main team. Anyways, if you don't need to support like Gepard or Bailu that keeps you alive with shields and heals, or maybe you want to suck it up like I just said, I would highly recommend getting Bronya or Himeko because Himeko is very strong in AoE stages like in Pure Fiction, sometimes Apocalyptic Shadow, sometimes even Memory of Chaos. And Bronya is just very good in general for quite a lot of hyper carry teams because she has 100% action advance on her skill with a huge 66% damage boost and is even able to dispel a debuff. She can give you a attack boost by 59%, which is quite a lot. Crit damage boost based on Bronya's own crit damage. She even gives you 10% extra damage just by existing. It's quite insane what she can do compared to the other 1.0 standard units. Whereas for Himeko, she is a Erudition crit carry that does damage based on whether you can break enemies. Yeah, when an enemy is inflicted with weakness break, Himeko will gain 1 charge. When you get 3 charges, you perform a follow-up attack. So basically you want to be breaking them as much as possible, which opens up Himeko to 2 different kinds of playstyle. You can play her as a crit carry with Herta, who is also another follow-up unit, crit follow-up unit. And you can also play her in Super Break with Ranmei, because what Ranmei does is she will increase your weakness break efficiency, right? Which will mean you get more breaks, more weakness breaks, because obviously you're breaking them faster, your skill, whatever, your ultimate, they do more toughness reduction, so you get more damage from her. Obviously, Fukue is coming as well, and Fukue is extremely strong with Himeko, so if you are going to pull for Fukue, it's pretty good to get Himeko. And on the other hand, if you are pulling for Sunday, then even though Bronya and Sunday, they still kind of want to be used for different things, but at the early game stage, it really doesn't matter. You just take what you get. If you are really getting Sunday, there isn't really much of a point for you to be getting Bronya because they do too much of the same thing at the early game stage that the difference doesn't really matter for you. You just have to do a certain amount of damage and it's not hard to hit that threshold. So next, if you are in the mid to late game stage, maybe you already have a few of these standard units, or maybe you already have a few Eidolons like I have from playing since 1.0. I have E5 Gepard. You might be wondering which are the best Eidolons to get. And let me just very quickly say that E1 Bronya, E6 Bronya, E1 Himeko, E4 Himeko, and then for Gepard, none of them. For Clara, it's E1, E2, and E6. For Welt, it's E1, E2, E6. For Yanqing, just don't touch him. For Baidu, try not to touch her as well. For Bronya's main 2 weaknesses is that her damage boost only lasts for a single turn. You can see right here, increases the damage by 1 turn. And the other weakness is that she is very skill point intensive. She will suck up your skill points. And if you don't have a team that is ready to play with that skill point usage, it can be a bit hard. And that is why E1 is so strong, because it has a chance of recovering a skill point when you use a skill. E6 is also pretty strong because this is the other weakness we talked about. It is the damage boost from the skill only lasting for 1 turn. So if you're at E5, I would really get E6 if you use Bronya often, because it makes her a much more comfortable character to play. Next for Himeko, I think her E6 is just pretty bad, so I wouldn't really get more. I would just stop at E4. Basically what E4 does is it gives you an extra point of charge when you are breaking, which obviously means you're going to get a lot more follow-up attacks. I am not very sure if this works with elites, because elites give you 3 charges instantly, and Himeko being a victim of the early 1.0 time period, they do not let you overflow your charges like the newer characters are able to do, like Facial, Aventurine, whatever. So not the best. The value is slightly lower, and I don't know why they don't want to just update it, but yeah, that's their choice, I guess. Next, E2 is pretty bad. E1 increases your speed by 20%. Obviously, it's based on your base speed, which is 96. It's very low compared to most other characters in the game, but 20% is still quite a lot. I think it's about 19 plus speed, so it's still quite useful. It's for Gepard. I think Gepard's Eidolons are just pretty bad in general because it's based on him using his skill, and the main strength for Gepard is that he is a very strong shielder that doesn't really need to use skill points. And when your support doesn't need to use skill points, it means you get more skill points for your hyper carry, your damage dealers that really need it to deal damage. And because of his energy cost, he's able to get his ultimate up pretty fast. Max energy 100. Yes, it's very low energy, so sometimes 2 to 3 turns you're able to get it. Please don't sing. Oh my god. Yeah. Even at E4, it gives you 20% effect rest for your entire team, but it's a whole Eidolon just for 20 effect rest. I really don't think it's that strong. E6 is also pretty alright, because you don't really want to be downed in the first place. That's his technique. Yeah, when you're struck with a killing blow, you become knocked down, Gepard will restore his HP, whatever. So this is basically building off that. But the thing is, Memory of Chaos stages and whatever, they always give you an extra point for not being knocked down in the first place. And even if you revive, it still doesn't really count as your ally not being knocked down. I've tried. So E6, it's a good early game Eidolon, but if you're in the mid to late game, you want to get 3 stars on Memory of Chaos, or rather as many stars as you can, you really do not get E6 here, or rather any of his Eidolons. For Clara, her Eidolons are pretty strong, and Clara, I think, is one of the few units from 1.0 that still scale pretty well into the late game. You always see people clearing Memory of Chaos and whatever with Clara, especially when the enemies are able to attack a lot. E1 is very strong because her skill will not remove marks of counter anymore. E2 gives you a 30% increase in attack after using her ultimate, which obviously is very strong. You want to do damage as much as possible when you use her ultimate, so E4 helps her to stay alive for a longer period of time or more comfortably. It's not the best Eidolon, but it's something. E6 is the best Eidolon. Basically, Clara being a counter unit, she wants to be hit as much as possible, but obviously there are times where Clara is not hit and you kinda have to suck it up and lose damage because she will not counter. This basically helps you to make up for that times and also gives her more flexibility because there are also other counter units that want to be hit. So if the enemy only has single target attacks, this basically lets Clara be okay with not being the one targeted by the enemy's attack. Welt is quite interesting. I don't think he's that good, but he's definitely playable, especially against a lot of imaginary weak enemies. His E1 is actually pretty strong. It gives an 80% increase basically of the scale multiplier. It's 72% at level 10 and you get it 3 times, so it's 72 times 3, and then you take that whole thing times 80%, which I think is like 170-ish. Yeah, so it's pretty good. It gives you quite a lot of damage. extra damage rather, but it's only after you use your ultimate, right? And that's where E2 comes in. It helps you to regenerate your ultimate faster, which means you will be able to activate E1 more frequently. E4 I think is pretty bad. What this does is help you to redistribute your stats a little bit, but the thing is, it's only for the skill, not even for the ultimate, which also has obviously effective rate and base hit rate. So I just don't think it's very good because he doesn't really let you completely redistribute your stats. Maybe if it was base chance for skill and ultimate to inflict the debuff increases by 35%, it could be better, but it's not, so we deal with it. At E6, his skill will deal damage 1 extra time, so instead of 1 to the center and 2 random, it's now 1 to the center and 3 random, which means 72 times 4, and then you still get the extra E1 bonus, right? Which is why it's that strong. I would not recommend getting Eidolons for Welt if you do not already have him built, but if he is carrying you from your early to mid game to now, it's not really a bad idea if you really don't use Bronya or Himeko. Obviously, these two are the highest priority. And then for Yanqing and Bailu, just don't touch them. Yep. I think it's pretty telling when a day 1 player has not touched the unit at all. Nothing. Zero relics, nothing. Do not use, do not give him more Eidolons unless you want to meme about something. Trust me, it's not gonna be very fun in Memory of Chaos or whatever. It's not gonna do a lot. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the 5-star selectors. I think it's quite obvious who your priorities are. I think the only time you don't get Bronya and Himeko, if maybe you are pretty far off from the next best Eidolon, like maybe you already have E1 and E2, you're not gonna get E6 anytime soon, right? Maybe you can get someone else. Maybe if you already have E1 Himeko, the next best is at E4. It's quite far, you need 3 whole Eidolons. Maybe you can go for someone else to complete your collection of 5 stars or whatever, it's fine. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and see you.